Good morning. This is Erin with the Department of Medicaid. It's not quite 10 o'clock. We'll give it just a few minutes while the waiting room is clearing out. I just received an email from Melanie. She's going to be unable to join us today.
I do have a question if you don't care. Is recovery homes, are they listed as same as the care that you all give those homes?
No, Sherry, they're listed differently.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, it is 10 o'clock and it looks like our waiting room is clear. I have logged in. I have Brad, our new member. I have Wayne.
Morning.
Good morning. Johnny, Sherry, and Doug. Did I miss anyone else as they were coming in? Okay, well, we do not have a chair as of right now, so I will kick our meeting off and welcome everybody to the August 6th IDD TAC meeting. My name is Erin. I'm with the Department of Medicaid. The only email I received having interest being the new chair was from Melanie, who is not with us today. Do any other members wish to throw their hat in? Do we want to table this until we have more members next meeting?
Aaron, I'd like to nominate Wayne Harvey to be our new TAC chair.
Okay, Wayne has been nominated. Is there a vote to?
I'd like to second.
Okay, second. Does anyone oppose? Okay, all in favor, if you could turn your camera on, we can vote, and then Wayne can get the meeting going and establish approval of last month's meeting minutes.
Does Wayne accept the nomination?
Oh, well, I guess I should ask that as well. That's fair if you're going to vote him in.
Yes, I'll accept the nomination.
All in favor, Sherry, if you don't mind to turn your camera on while we vote, please, if you can. Oh, it looks like she's having to join back in.
Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes. I was
Okay.
trying to flip to see if your camera's on in your other
It is
window.
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Wayne, welcome
Thank
to
you,
your new
Aaron.
position, and I will turn it over to you.
Okay, we've got the chair voting out of the way. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve the June minutes?
I make a motion.
Second.
Second, Doug?
Yes.
All right. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, motion carries. June minutes are approved. All right, the next item up on the agenda is the status of the rate study copies that were requested from previous meetings. Aaron, do we have somebody from the cabinet to address that issue?
I believe we do. I am
Aaron, this is
oh,
Leslie. I'm on. I'm sorry.
thank you.
I had a weird pop-up on my screen. I apologize. I'm gonna try to address the questions today. So of course, we are planning the waiver amendments to CMS in early October, and there is a public comment period that will be prior to that, sometime around the week of August the 12th. The rate study is being finalized and we'll release it at that time. So I don't have anything to share with you today, but the plan is to release at the same time that we release public comment for the waiver amendment.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay.
I've seen a question pop up through the thing. Amy has some additional questions about the rate study itself. Amy, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Wayne. We obviously, sorry, my computer just echoed. Obviously have asked and have had some concerns related to the implementation of the rate study, the required public comment that comes with that, and its effect on the existing waivers that currently exist. Obviously, we will have to amend the waivers, et cetera, go through that whole process again. But our specific question is about certain services that received a 50% rate increase under Appendix K. That rate increase had an 85% pass through. That rate increase was made permanent in the last waiver. Relying upon that information, providers switched from a system of issuing bonuses, weekly bonuses as that passed through, and implemented permanent wage increases to those to their employees. Again, relying upon the fact that those increases were made permanent. And now providers are growing more and more concerned that those are going to be taken away and that they're subsequently going to have to lower wages for employees that were given wage increase. The effect obviously is going to be people are probably going to quit their jobs and individuals are going to lose access to very important personal care services. And we just wondered if the cabinet had any update on this.
Is Leslie still with us?
Oh, Leslie, you're
I
on.
was on mute. I apologize. The department's intent to keep the 50% increases for those providers who attested, passing along that 85% to the direct care workers. And in essence, we set the rate at the 70% of the rate study unless it would have decreased, which that is not what we wanted to do. So more to come on that. I'm sorry that you're going through the situation and you're trying to figure out and get answers right now, but there was no intent to reduce anything. So we'll get that back to you as soon as possible.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And
Absolutely.
are you able to comment at all on the departments, on the decision making leading to that 70%? And I asked just because a number of people were involved in the Rate City work group. I was one of them. There are additional people on this call who are involved. And the intent of the rate study was to determine, again, as someone who is part of the Rate City work group, what wages and what rates were necessary. Actually, not even in today. This was 2022. So frankly, those rates are a little outdated as they are today. But very specifically, what wages would be appropriate and necessary to sustain the workforce? In that rate study, like there are different factors of the rate, and I'm not going to get into all of that because I'm not a mathematician.
Yeah.
There are very much smarter people than me. But essentially, a component of each rate is a wage. And for services that use direct support professionals, which is a lot of services, the wage recommended that was determined to be necessary to support and recruit and retain employees was about, if I'm remembering correctly, $22 an hour. So then the decision to reduce these rates by 70%, obviously brings that wage down to about $15 an hour, which is what's, about, depending on the service, about what's being paid now, and is not sufficient. And I'm just kind of wondering how we got here, from that $22 an hour to the $15 an hour.
So Amy, I'm not going to answer that, but I can, if it's okay, Erin, I need to have that as a take back, and I'd like to make sure that I can meet with the commissioner and Steve Beck on that as well before I answer any questions. I'm trying to keep it very high level today, to not confuse, if that makes sense, because
Absolutely.
I don't want to be dangerous to everybody and not explaining things correctly.
No, but I do appreciate you noting that as a take back.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. And I completely understand that you can't answer today. I really appreciate you noting that, though. That's all I had on that, Wayne. Thank you.
Wayne, question regarding timing. I heard just a minute ago something regarding a request for rate copies in a public comment period near August the 12th. That's next week. I'm having lots of questions internally related to timing of any rate study results. And I guess I'm curious, just in plain language, can I get somebody to speak to, from where we are today, what do we think the timing is moving out? And I think about what happened a couple of years ago related to all the back billing and that type of thing. And my accounting folks are very interested in effective dates and timing. And so if somebody could speak to that, I would appreciate it.
I'm sorry, I muted again. I'm going to start that conversation. I was just going to ask Alicia, if I say anything that's not quite right, just let me know. So based on those time periods that we just talked about with public comment going in the week of the 12th, then we're looking to CMS. Now, mind you, you all are very familiar with CMS process. We are at their beck and call sometimes on timing, right? So we would hope to have two CMS by the first part of October, which would mean that we probably would have approval, and I'm saying probably because I cannot tell you 100%, the first part of next year. I'm thinking January. So, Alicia, does that sound about right with the conversations you've had as well?
Yes, I would agree with that. Again, though, I would just say that it really is in CMS's hands once we submit those waiver amendments. So, we like she said, we're at their beck and call, and we have to wait on them and answer any questions they may have before they will approve anything.
So Doug, when you were asking about timing, one thing might make, the plan is to have the CMS in October. So that would be after public comment, answering public comment, posting questions and answers on web and things like that. We're looking at hopefully having to CMS in first part of October.
Okay, and then, thank you for that.
Absolutely.
What do we anticipate effective date of rates?
That's
Would
what
it-
I'm thinking. It would probably be, Alicia, it would probably be first part of the year, right? Like maybe January if we submit in October.
Okay.
Again, there's timing.
Yeah, it's all about the timing of CMS. As long as things go smooth, I could definitely see January 1st, around that time being the effective date. But again, I don't ever want to speak for CMS. So.
I understand, and I wouldn't ask anybody to try to speak for CMS. So nothing would be retroactive to say July 1.
Not that I'm aware of, Doug. I can take
Okay.
that as a follow back too, but not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
And just to add on to what Deputy Commissioner Hoffman and Ms. Clark said, CMS, just from my interactions with other states, they do have a little bit of a backlog right now in processing waiver amendments because a lot of states are doing a lot of things right now. So that unfortunately may add to some lack of timeliness on their part.
Yeah, and that's, I can, I handle a lot of the 1115 waivers as well. It's the same thing. When I talk to them, it's the same thing. They're very backlogged, especially coming out of COVID with lots of new opportunities. So yes, I'm hearing that they're backlogged too.
Also, I think there are some people stuck in the waiting room. If maybe they could be let in.
There's no one in the waiting room, Amy.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Any other questions or discussion on that topic? Okay, we've kind of hit all around this one, but just to cover the topic itself, update regarding status of regulations submitted to the waiver programs.
Yeah, so the regulations have, they're being drafted and they're under joint review by the Department of Aging and Independent Living, Behavioral Health, and as well as DMS. And just a reminder again that we have to factor in CMS's approval of the waiver and any modifications that they might ask us to make, trying to align those regulations. So I think we were thinking probably winter, and please don't quote me on that again. I'm thinking regulations might be out sometime around the winter time frame. I just asked that question last night because I really, again, we're at the beck and call. We don't know when CMS's approvals or modifications, how long those will take. Those actually could take into early next year. And if they do, then that'll push the reg out too.
Any other questions on that feedback?
I had one question. Again, you all may not be able to comment on this, and if you cannot, I completely understand. We are not, but we are not anticipating any sort of e-regs. We're anticipating the traditional sort of reg process here.
No, unless Jonathan's on, I am not thinking that they will allow us to go with e-reg on this one. But Jonathan, Scott, are you on? You might not be on. It's my understanding it would not be an e-reg, Amy, but again, we can follow up on those things.
Yeah, totally understand.
We've
And
been
then as
very
it,
limited on the e-regs right now for quite some time.
and again, you may not be able to answer this, but as it, obviously we're going to have new regs for not just the services, but the tax to comply with the access rule. Do we think those are going to be executive orders, e-regs?
Aaron,
Or those are statutes.
Yeah. Aaron, can you take that question? Have you had that one to come up already?
From my understanding, I believe we have a consultant group that's going to work with us to help digest everything in the final rule. And CMS has been having some meetings. Kelly attended last week while I was on vacation for guidance on how to establish the new back. My guess is they will have to go through, since we're not doing a lot of e-regs, it will go through the normal process. But with it being a CMS ask, that would more be a Jonathan question. But my guess would be just through the traditional process of, because they're all in the, Leslie, help me. I'm having a total, my brain's not functioning yet. I'm still at the beach, guys. I'm sorry. Statutes.
Jealous.
Oh, it's been 3 years, so I needed it. So it would have to go through all the normal process of everything changing. And so that's probably going to be a very heavy lift
Yeah.
that we're still trying to weed through and figure out, how we're going to tackle all of the
Yeah,
different
and what's
areas of,
required.
what's, if that helps at all. It's probably a very round the bush answer, but it's kind of, we're still trying to weed through everything and figure out the best way to tackle it.
No, and I'm on the same page as you all. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it too. That's why I'm kind of asking about these process questions, just so I can keep my own head on straight.
And Amy and Wayne, may I go back to my the last question I've just realized when I was sitting here thinking that I may have said something that confused everybody. So I want to make sure that I'm okay. So as the regulations go, when I said winter, that would be out for public comment winter. And that would be 2025. Remember, we've got to get approval first from the waiver. And then the entire process would probably take, now I'm saying 8 to 10 months. If Jonathan was on here, he'd probably say 9 months or more. Don't anticipate an E-reg, and that would mean the regs wouldn't be approved till spring of 2025. The public comment was when I said winter, that's public comment. So I just want to make sure I corrected myself for you.
So, okay. So are we aiming to have these regs go through session then?
I think. Yeah, they definitely could, couldn't they?
Yeah, again, just trying to wrap my own head around
Yeah,
it
when
and
you
plan
said that,
my
I was
year
like,
out.
yeah, it definitely could. There is no, I just wanted to let you all know, we have no desire to delay anything. So as fastly as we can work, that we will do so. Again, I need to touch base with Jonathan. I did text him last night and ask him, but I think that's where we are right now is thinking it'd be winter of 2025 with an anticipated date of spring of 2025 for approval. And hopefully those don't get, Amy, those wouldn't get moved or deferred or all those things that can happen to regs too, right?
No, I got you. I
And
completely
that would make,
understand.
that makes me think too, that definitely it probably would not be an E. They don't, they prefer us not going through E-regs during session. When you said that, I was like, that, yeah, it's actually can fall right into there, can it? So
Yeah,
the quicker
okay.
we can get everything moving, the better for us. So, for everybody, you all, as well. So we'll try to work on that.
Any other questions on that matter? Okay, the next agenda item is the update regarding CareWise contract with Medicaid, something around backdating and other issues.
Yeah, if Wayne, if I might, can I offer a little clarity to the topic for the Medicaid people on here so I can at least talk with a little bit more specificity? A couple of issues. Number one, and this was announced quite a while ago. Obviously, I think that there was a trend that um, on the cabinet's end, they were seeing quite a bit of backdating. And then it was clarified that it really needed to only be used in certain circumstances, like emergencies. Obviously, when we have emergency placement, emergency services, obviously, if we're expecting providers to deliver services, we do need to backdate and reimburse them for the emergency services that they delivered. However, I think there seems to be confusion about kind of the unique nature of kind of emergency situations or emergency residential switches or emergency residential placements, emergency behavior supports, etc. When it comes to backdating, CareWise apparently has drawn a line in the sand about backdating, saying that they will not approve anything prior to the date on the plan of care sign-in sheet. And obviously that is a good rule, but it obviously does not cover emergency situations. And I was just hoping that someone might touch base with them and offer a little clarification on that, or if the philosophy surrounding emergency services and reimbursement and backdating has changed, if we could have some clarification on that.
So Amy, I can't speak to the emergency. When I read this question, I was having trouble understanding what it would mean. And of course, my answer back was if providers have access to the MWMA already and the information and the end dates, and case managers should be able to track it. And cases are entered, up to 30 days, I think. So I didn't understand the need for the back date. Now that was me reading this sentence off of the agenda. I was like, why would we need the back date? The only time I can ever think that we really take that on a case-by-case basis and take a look at things is like if there's something going on with eligibility, maybe it didn't mean to happen and we need to take a look at that. But I don't know that, Alicia, unless you know something I don't know of any backdating even for emergencies right now.
No, and I mean, if you have an example that you can provide, but even if somebody is needing, say, emergency residential, for instance, there should be a meeting occurring, right? You don't just, I mean, the individual needs to know, and I don't think that things are happening without appropriate communication and meetings to provide services to these members or participants is what we call them. So if you have a specific example, you are more than welcome to send that in. We will definitely take a look at that. But, you know, all providers do have access to our, to MWMA. And so, you know, people can see where they're at with their PAs and all that good stuff. So again, Amy, just if you had a specific example of some type of emergency that has occurred that that there wasn't a meeting on, definitely bring that to our attention so we can research that a little bit further, please.
Yeah, and that's my follow-up question. When unique situations pop up, who would be the best person to email or contact?
So I mean, all of our plan of cares and level of cares go through CareWise. So you would need to go through them. They can reach out to us, but if you know, if there's something, definitely let us know. The operating agencies, depending on which waiver, can start that research into it. They can get with us if they have additional questions on that.
Okay. Follow-up question to that. Providers have reported a tremendous amount of frustration recently. Oftentimes CareWise will refer them to the help desk when an issue, questions such as these, you know, kind of unique questions or differences pop up. CareWise will refer them to the help desk. The help desk will refer them to CareWise. CareWise will refer them back to the help desk. And the two kind of just bounce back and forth and a resolution doesn't happen. And I have an example from a provider, for example, CareWise would not approve of plan of care. It was an SCL plan of care because they said that the plan of care had more than 40 hours of service on it. Obviously, that's not the SCL requirement, and the plan of care was well within the 16 hours of combined services. You know, the services that can be combined for the 16 hours. It was well within the 16 hours per day. But CareWise was insistent that the limit was 40 hours a week for SCL, which is not true. It was elevated to a manager at CareWise, and the requirement still remained in place. So when issues like that arise, to whom should a provider appeal?
I wouldn't really call it an appeal. I would call it that they need to, so DMS does have a contract with Gainwell, And definitely want the operating agency involved because they are the operating agency, the subject matter experts who are operating our programs. But DMS does have that contract with Gainwell, so we need to be involved. I know there's people on my team that meet with them at least monthly, if not every other week. I don't want to quote that. I know we used to meet weekly, and then we have kind of extended that out a little bit. But if they need re-education, we are more than happy to provide that. But at any time that, there are, say, complaints or concerns, please have the providers to, they can send it to me if that's, fine or whatever. And then I can send it out to the appropriate staff to take a look at that and to re-educate if that's needed.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you so
I would
much.
say though, anytime if I get a complaint or a concern, there should be an example attached.
Yeah, no, I got you. I will make sure that people know that. But thank you. I really appreciate that. And obviously these are
Yeah, and I
not
would
the
also just,
norm, but things do happen.
right. And I mean, you might get somebody new in, right, that needs to just have a little bit more additional training. And, because nobody's perfect, right? I'm not even perfect. I make mistakes as well. So we just want to work together and be partners with our providers, with our vendors, to get the right decisions made based on, regulatory requirements, or whether it be the approved waiver applications. I was going to say something else, and as quick as that thought came, I think it left. So if I remember, I'll bring it up later.
And then something else just popped into my mind. Alicia, you may remember this. In beginning in 2019, I'm going to explain this badly. We had a approved backdating of, I think, 2 weeks and maybe 30 days. When a participant goes over the approved units on the PA because of something special, right? An emergency, something like that. And then the team meets, etc. Previously, it was allowable to backdate the approval of the extra units so that the providers who needed to exceed could get paid. Do you remember this?
I do not remember that. I do know that the system does allow plans to be put in, and really a prior authorization is a prior approval, right? Before you provide services, you really need a prior authorization. But we do allow, say if you meet today, but Amy, you don't get to the plan until 3 or 4 days later, but no service should ever start before a plan of care meeting. So even though that you might put it in, say on 8/9, and you met on 8/6, you may start that service on 8/6 because you've met in the morning and services are starting today, and you have your plan, your sign-in sheet with everybody involved. Say Johnny's on there, me, you, Doug, whoever, we're all involved in the plan of care meeting. We have all agreed to it along with the participant, right? Participant, guardians, all of that have to be in there. And we've agreed. You might put it in a couple days later, but you still have everybody's sign in where they were there and were involved in the plan of care.
And just to be clear, when we're talking about backdating, are we also talking about when someone happens to go out of payer status through no fault of any provider? For example, we do see people, especially now with kind of the renewals and stuff happening, we've seen people intermittently go out of payer status, again, through no fault of any provider. We don't want to leave, for example, a residential provider without payment for services they actually provided because, someone went out of payer status due to a system error.
So the way the MWMA system is set up, you have, I think it's 60 days to get somebody back into status before
Okay.
the system is going to close them out. But I will always tell you though, that is a risk that individuals are taking, right? If they don't ever get Medicaid back, you can't pay a claim, even if you have a PA without Medicaid eligibility.
So are you suggesting that providers cease services in those times?
I'm just saying, if they do not get Medicaid eligibility back, I do not have a way as the state of Kentucky with Medicaid to pay somebody.
Got it.
And I'll let Leslie add anything that if she needs to add anything else on these topics that we've been talking about.
Alicia, I don't think I have anything to add.
Got it. Thank you. I do appreciate the clarification on those items. And obviously, understandably, in a perfect world, no one is providing services prior to a team meeting. So we'll get it figured out.
Amy, this is Myra. I have an example that kind of goes along that line. Whenever these renewal Medicaid eligibilities have came up, we see a lot of problems. It's not so much from the Medicaid end, but from the SSI determination. And it can take up to 3 months just to get an appointment to get to Social Security to be interviewed, which goes past the 60 days. And I mean, and I know it's a risk we've taken, but we've had someone that's been out of Medicaid eligibility for a year, and we are still checking in on them, doing the case management, knowing we're not going to get paid, but because we're also told that we have to continue continuity of services and not have a gap. And we just can't say, oh, sorry, you can't get Medicaid and it's SSI's fault. Come back and see us when you get SSI worked out. So that's another layer to this is SSI. They are so far behind in getting their determinations, then it falls over into the 60-day. And it's literally taken anywhere from 6 months to a year on some of these redeterminations for SSI eligibility.
So I can tell you that, Myra, and this has not been anything new. This has been an ongoing thing, that if there are individuals who who have lost Medicaid eligibility, and there's that red banner that shows up.
Yes.
There can be the request to start that closure process over, to allow them an additional amount of time, but that picks up, I think, and it's been a while since I've actually been in and done one of those. We have staff that are in there day to day, but that it will start over. So I don't want to say suppress, but you basically start the 60 days over before it would close out. And there have been people who have requested in the past to, do that because they are working through the process.
Yes, and we have done that. But we have had some.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had some that's taken a year. One person, it took us 2 years.
Yeah.
So, and I know SSI is another realm, to get into, but that is one of the problems that we have with Medicaid eligibility is it's not so much Kentucky Medicaid as it is the SSI and working with them. I don't have an answer.
Is there a way, Leslie, that you guys could go back as Medicaid and have a conversation with the SSI people and see if there's a bridge contact there that could be made?
Not to my knowledge, Wayne, that would be a perfect world too, where I had control over SSI. But again, we can take it back. I don't know that I can get an answer that's gonna, make you happy, but we can take that one back for you. I wish I did have control over other factors that integrate with us that cause us you know, lack of continuity and things like that that we could address a little bit better.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any other questions or discussion on this particular issue? I mean, there's a lot that's been put in the chat room about this, about different examples and so forth. If Medicaid personnel want to take note of those.
Wayne,
Yes,
could we invite an SSI representative to the next TAC meeting? Just to see if they'll come?
don't see why we couldn't.
They
If
probably won't, but
if Aaron or Leslie one will put me in touch with them, I'll certainly invite them.
I mean, just to discuss their process and their backlog and, you know, what, do they have anything that could be done in these situations so that people don't lose out on services and eligibility? And
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think we can certainly do that. All they can do is tell us no, right?
yeah, I suggest we, you know, do it just for the record, to invite them to come and hear the issues and, you know, hopefully work toward a solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
I want to just clarify a quick question. Because I read the chat. It's Cynthia Coombs, by the way. So as far as being able to have that meeting before there's a change, which certainly makes a lot of sense, as Amy said, and others have said, there are, and I just want to confirm, there are some flexibilities with what type of meeting, just kind of for anybody who might want to make sure they have all the details. For example, if there's a true emergency, I have even had a text conversation after hours to just have that documentation that the conversation was had. Yes, we want to do this. Guardian, participant, providers. Okay, we all agree. Let me get that going ASAP. And that has been acceptable, certainly in emergency situations. And then, you know, when it comes to urgent, with maybe a case manager not being able to get on site to get a physical signature, we still have the flexibility of virtual meetings. And even a lot of our participants have gotten really good at being able to log on and use some of this technology. So I think I just want to confirm that those tools are still available for case managers who need to move really quickly and make sure that everyone's informed about what's happening before it goes on a plan of care.
Leslie, are you going to address that or?
So Cynthia, you were saying that you just wanted to make sure that folks were informed of what was really going on the plan of care. Is that what you said? I'm sorry. I was trying to write it down.
Well, I think that some of the confusion maybe comes with the quote definition of a meeting. I mean, in an ideal world, we are sitting down and having, you know, a conversation about this is what's been requested by the participant. How can we put this together for you? But, you know, people are talking about emergencies where, let's say it's the very end of the day or it's after hours and someone has to have something happen really quickly, that a meeting, especially in an emergency situation, I have taken advantage of using the flexibility of having the whole team on a text and saying, there is an emergency with Cynthia and she needs to move right now. And I need to be able to have a plan of care with ABC provider on it. Can we all agree to that? And then throw it, then just have it on the plan of care, because I have gotten kickback, you know, myself, it's been a while, with requests that were written to start prior to the date on the signature page. And that was confusion on my part a long time ago. But I just want to make sure that those flexibilities about how a meeting can work, like what a meeting can look like, just it doesn't have to be us all coming around a table as a team. It can be an electronic team meeting.
Cynthia, I'm just gonna ask with that, so I used to be a case manager as well years ago, so you would make sure that you document that and put it in your notes that you had the emergency meeting and why you had it and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, and then usually what I do is, let's say there is some kind of like text conversation about it, I will just cut and paste that and make it part of the plan of care as if it's a signature page to really document that everybody knew what was going on. Because it, frankly, in this day and age, and well, it's been that way for a long time, sometimes it's hard to get everybody around the table, and certainly, as Anne says, after hours, and Anne is mentioning that after hours, state guardians don't make themselves available, and that's true. So that can get tough.
I think since I've been in this field for 27 years or whatever, we all have the Friday emergencies,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
I totally
Or
understand that. I hear
4
you.
o'clock before Thanksgiving.
It didn't change from any of my roles in healthcare. I've
No.
always had the 8 o'clock emergencies. It seems like on Friday. So I hear you. Yeah, I would say that the best thing to do is make sure that you're well documented. Again, we're not going to solve anything today, but if you want to send us examples to look at or suggestions, Cynthia, like you just said, we can take a look at those as well. Don't mind too.
Okay, yeah, I'll send an email just to kind of clarify my thought process and if it makes sense, and then I'm happy to share it with anybody if we get have a conversation that clarifies it.
Wayne, can you just go forward to like the next one and I will be right back, I promise.
Okay. The next one is an update regarding slots being funded for the waiver programs. I know the cabinet has sent out notification of that. Is there somebody else besides Leslie that just wants to address that one real quick?
I can address it at a high level. As far as the slots, we have come up with a plan to get those out along with our regular slots that we are releasing, and just let you know we're sending those out gradually. And I don't have the stuff in front of me, so I'm trying to think through so like with Michelle P, we don't want to overwhelm the system, right? So I think that the plan is, it's about every 2 weeks or so to release those until we get those additional slots that were allocated in the FY25 year out there to individuals.
Alicia, I have it in front of me. Do you want me to help with the specific numbers?
Oh, well, there you go. Hey, thanks, Crystal. Yes, if you want to.
So for August, September, and October, so for August, we will have 85 of the new additional slots for Michelle P that will be allocated. We will have 85 again in September and 80 in October. As she was indicating, spread apart, so those will come out towards the beginning of the month. We're working on the August ones right this minute. We're just confirming all the contact information and everything is correct before we send that out. So those should be coming out anytime now. And then approximately 2 weeks out later in the month, which is the time we usually do the monthly allocations, we will continue to do those 75 that we're already doing. And of course, we'll continue to monitor that process to see how it goes and if we have to make any adjustments, prevent any bottlenecks, we can, but that is the plan for now. And then after October, that would be all of those new slots would be allocated at that point. And we'll just continue on through the rest of the year with our regular allocations until no slots are available. But usually we'll have the ones that become re-available throughout the year, and we'll continue to allocate those each month.
Are there any
Hey,
questions?
Crystal, can I ask you a question real quick?
Yes.
It may have been you and I that had this conversation, or I may have imagined that you and I had this conversation and I actually had it with someone else. But I believe I heard someplace that for Michelle P, it takes like about on average 60 to 90 days from when an individual is contacted about slot availability to actually get them set up. Is that true?
You mean set up for the assessment?
Well, no, like up and running in
Up into the
the
plan of
slot.
care.
Sorry.
I think it really just varies across the state depending on the availability of case management. We do have certain areas of the state where there's more of kind of a shortage, and it depends on whether they're specifically seeking PDS or some things like that as to how long it takes. You know, but as far as the steps, it can go much faster than that if they're able to schedule the assessment quickly, the individual, not the agency. And if they already have, you know, ability to find a case management or select a case management agency quickly.
And as far as the PDS case management goes, obviously you, Crystal, you're not in charge of DDID, does not monitor PDS. And maybe Alicia might be able to speak to this. Obviously it has been opened up for a reason because there was a tremendous shortage of PDS case managers. And now we're running into the lack of availability of FMAs. And obviously there's been conversation about potentially a statewide vendor and an RFP. Are there any updates about that?
Is Leslie back with us?
Leslie might be able to be the best one to talk
I'm
about
on.
that.
I
sorry.
apologize. My dad's been very sick, had a bad accident this weekend that you all don't want to hear about, but I just noticed he was on the move there and I had to run and take care of him real quick. Are you asking about the, I'm sorry, Amy, were you asking about the RFP, possibility of an RFP? Is that what you're asking for?
Yeah, and just the general access issues when it comes to PDS case management right now.
Of course, we are aware and we are taking a look. There's been no final decisions. We have met in the last week or two about an RFP, but there is no final decisions. I should know something about that fairly soon. We had conversations, I guess twice last week is when we talked about that. So if you can give me just a little bit more time on that, I'll share what I know as soon as I know more information.
Okay, thank you.
And Johnny's got a question. Johnny?
Sure, thanks. Just wanted to clarify the Michelle P. slot allocations so that Crystal gave. So is the plan to continue allocating about 75 slots every 2 weeks that would be available anyway, in addition to allocating 85 in August, 85 September, and 80 in October for the newly funded ones?
Yes, Crystal, did you speak while I was gone? But that is what I've got from information.
That is,
from the VA.
there will be twice a month until those new slots are done. The additional allocations will can just continue on monthly at the current pace that it does.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, the twice a month is just until we've exhausted those new slots.
Can I share my screen? I don't know how much was discussed while I was gone. I apologize. Can I share my screen just a minute and go over some information too?
I was to say, Crystal already gave the information about the how we were doing the slots, the graduate, and so yeah, she covered that.
Just for Michelle P.
Yeah, just for Michelle P. So
okay.
Talk about SCL.
I was gonna say, can somebody let me share screen, please? Aaron, can somebody move it to multiple here? Can I do it? Maybe I can do it. Number 3. Sorry, and I did this really quick, so it's not beautiful, but I wanted to give you some information. Sorry. And again, Crystal may have already went over some of this. This was the slots that were allocated for state fiscal year 25. Can everybody see my screen okay? Yes, okay. And then for House Bill 6, we will have to get approval for those after we complete those wait list management activities that were requested in the session. So we have got to do that next. This is the allocation. I just want to make sure, just like Crystal probably said, we want to make sure that we do this gradual and stagger throughout the month to avoid causing, you know, I call it the bottleneck effect, which we went through many, many years ago with Michelle P. We don't want to do that. We're trying to avoid causing provider overcapacity or creating situations where folks were going without enrollment. For the ABI long-term care, we had 25 slots for that one. We released those. There's no waiting list, so they're just made available on 7/31. For HCB, Michelle P. and SCL, as Crystal probably spoke, we had plans for those. So we released the HCBS slots. We made those available on 8/1. Many of you should have probably received communication on 7/31 from us. And then there's the Michelle P. slots. Mine don't include everything that those rolling slots that Crystal was talking about, but what she gave you is correct. I do have that on a piece of paper as well. We did make the SCL slots available for these. And Crystal, you may have already spoken about that.
I haven't.
We don't have emergency. We're looking at urgent, and then as emergency processes, just normal emergency processes as those become available. So I just wanted to let you all know that we got all that completed already. And as far as the communication goes, we sent out to all max tax on all of our server lists. It includes members, families, providers, and then we've put it on our website.
Deputy Commissioner Hoffman, you mentioned the report that's due to the legislature. Is that in October?
It is due in October, but in order to meet that October timeline, I have to have it done much, much earlier to get it through the process. So my goal right now is to have it completed by August the 26th.
Oh, wow.
For review.
Good luck.
For review.
Good luck.
For review.
And then I think you were occupied, but is there any plan for, as we introduce these Michelle P. slots, and obviously rightfully phasing them in, I think I agree with you that the system tends to get overwhelmed when you just drop them all at
It
once.
stops.
Yeah.
It doesn't slow down, it stops. We read into
yeah.
that with the original Michelle P. allocations from the lawsuit. We had that to happen.
Yeah. Is there any plan? And again, I understand the FMA piece, the RFP piece, but is there any plan to address the PDS wait list? You know, individuals. Obviously, we've opened up case management, and that's starting to throw out. But now, you know, individuals are can't find an FMA. So is the idea that, you know, the new allocations will just probably go to traditional services, or?
Yeah, I can't speak to that because that's a personal decision for the member and or the guardian, right? But we are addressing it in our conversations. I'm not addressing it like making things happen, but coming up with suggestions and talking through things that are causing that wait list and what we can do about it. And of course, the RFP was one of those options. Again, we have not made any decisions so I cannot speak for the cabinet at this time, but we are in conversations. Like I said, we had 2 meetings last week or discussions last week.
If an individual wants to obviously be on a wait list for a PDS service, that's their choice. But would it be Medicaid's position that they need to engage in traditional services to preserve their slot? I.e., you know, if you don't engage in a slot within, I believe it's 60 days, you lose it. So would it then be Medicaid's opinion that they would need to engage in some sort of traditional service while they're waiting?
I'm not going to make that recommendation to families right now. I would say, though, we have an extremely large amount of people that are on the waiting list that have state plan services. They're Medicaid eligible and could receive state plan services, and they're not accessing the service. So I wish those folks would at least access services that they need through regular state plan, right? I know that everything's not available, and I know it doesn't look exactly like waiver, but there are things that they could be accessing that they're not. And last time we checked, it was a large percentage.
Unfortunately, I think the issue is they just don't know that they can access those services, to be honest. Yeah, I think some of it's an education issue, but
We've been talking about that too. We've also talking about, for example, connectors and other folks getting what I call our waiver 101 training. We've been working through that, trying to get the Medicaid waiver 101 out to other folks as well. So I think it was David Very, he's a big help as well on eligibility side sometimes, and he's even requested it as soon as we get it updated. So.
and just to be clear, the criteria is still in place that if an individual does not access their slot within the regulatory time frame, they will lose it. So for example, someone would not be able to just wait for a year on a PBS service. They would
Alicia,
need to access it.
I'm gonna make sure I'm right though, because Amy, sometimes I talk old school because I used to be in this position years ago. We will always take a look at extenuating circumstances for members and things like that, but I believe that is correct. It is 60 days. Alicia, can you confirm that? It's 60 days that they need to access services. We can do extensions based on extenuating circumstances, case by case basis.
We've looked at some on a case by case basis. But our regulations do say 60 days, so we would expect them to show that they're trying to find traditional providers. But there are also a PDS interest form that they are put on if they can't find services. But again, I always like to, and I tell people that what services are needed, right? And I try to point them to the right direction. Because if it's therapies and stuff that we can get through state plan, I definitely want them to get the services that they need. So when they have Medicaid. And
Absolutely.
those community resources.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
Johnny?
Hey, Leslie, one question about the urgent category for SCL. So the 125 additional slots for fiscal year 25, are there any plans to allocate any of those people in the urgent category, or will they all be held and used for emergencies only?
No, Crystal, correct me if I'm wrong. We will be looking at actions for urgent lists, like asking for additional documentation and things like that. And then we will continue the process as emergencies come up. So they're going to work through. Crystal, I don't mean to speak for you. Do you want to take that?
Oh, that's fine. Yeah. So because we also have the turnover slots, so we've got that basically the whole group of slots, the new ones and those, and we've made sure that we have the required amount set aside that CMS requires us to have for emergency. So we've got those pushed to the side. The rest of those will go to folks on the urgent waiting list. We have already started doing some of those allocations, but because folks on urgent may not have had the updated adaptives and things like that that we have to actually get them for level of care and things like that process. We've already started the process of reaching out to those folks, making sure that those are getting taken care of. Our CMHCs are helping a lot with that and making sure those get done. And then as they submit that documentation to us and have everything updated and ready to go, we allocate. So we're just allocating them as they come in and they get that paperwork completed.
Okay, can I ask one more question? How many slots does CMS require you to set aside for emergencies?
It's in the waiver application.
I'm looking. I think I've got it. Just a second.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact number. I don't want to quote the wrong one, but
Is it 228? I believe that's
what I
correct.
had in my mind, but I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah,
that sounds right. Because I was going to say it was about 225, but I didn't want to swear.
228 are required to be
held.
Yes.
held for emergency. Oh,
Mhm.
okay, thank you.
And I have confirmed that is 228.
Yeah, I found it now that you found
I
it.
just had to pull it up.
And that's
found it in the
over,
right
over
spot.
the course of the waiver year?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that agenda topic? Leslie flashed the waiting list numbers on the screen.
Let's
Does
see.
want to read over those real quick one more time? Just
I didn't
anybody
mean to, let me put
catch
those back up. And sorry, can you see now?
Yep.
And sorry, they're not in a pretty, I wanted to make sure we had this morning's numbers. The last I had was last week, and I wanted to make sure we got updated numbers for you today.
Do you have any, you don't have to give me a specific number, but roundabout estimates about the HCB wait list?
Yes, I do. Hang on just a second.
I was like, I can get it if you can give me.
I was gonna say my numbers are from last week, Alicia, if you want to pull.
Yeah, if it's just gonna take a couple seconds.
I've got 2132 from July the 29th.
Our systems are secure, so when you're not in it very like continuously, and it'll kick you out and you have to sign back in. So let's see. You said HCB, and it looks like 2,119 as of this moment.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a reminder on HCB, there are reserve slots for money follows the person. I think those are, I believe it's 50.
Is it 50 per year?
Yes. And I think
Thank you.
yeah, used 10 and have 40 left.
anybody have any questions over the waiting list numbers? Okay, the last agenda item I have is disclosure of Medicaid personnel to serve as the current contact for providers. And after some explanation back and forth on that agenda item, I think Leslie, you were nominated for that. So it's my understanding that you'll be the person that providers can send an email to in case there's a astronomical issue that needs to be dealt with. Is that correct?
Sorry, I was muted again. I keep muting because of my doggies. So we do ask you to contact the operating agency. I mean, if you've got a bad situation, you can always CC me too. I don't mind that. Michelle P. and SCL should be handled by DBH, our operating agency. If it's PDS, it should go to Dale, the operating agency. Technically, providers and participants who are enrolled in the program should go to the corresponding agency. However, you are welcome to contact us as well. And then I've got contact information here. I was just going to drop into the chat if I can. You already have Alicia and I probably on speed dial. No, I'm just teasing. I was going to just share.
Hey, y'all are probably, I guess, familiar with Crystal.
Yeah.
And then Crystal, would you like, and sorry, I'm putting you on the spot. I think that you all had somebody who is moving into a new role here soon.
Yes, effective August 16th, Kathy Lerza, who is currently a branch manager within our division, will be the assistant director for the division. So along with me or in my absence, she is the contact.
And Wayne, I put the contact information because I had to look that up or get the information as well today for DBH and Dale if you need those phone numbers, and they've got email boxes.
Awesome. Good deal. All right. I don't have any further agenda items. Does anybody have anything that that they want to throw out on the table for open discussion?
I just, one thing is the Medicaid public comment. Previously, providers were encouraged to send non-pressing, sort of general philosophical concerns, specific comments about hopes and dreams for services, etc., to that email. Is that still being encouraged?
Yeah, I just would mention that there's very few changes except the rates this time. So, I mean, if it's your dreams about rates, Amy, I'm just sharing that with you. There's not a whole lot of changes. I think it's basically the rates for this particular amendment. Alicia?
Yeah, I think providers were being encouraged to, when it comes to thinking about the regs,
Oh,
changes were kind of being thought of to be sent there, but if
Um,
that's not where they should go.
if you want to send comments, Guidehouse is still a contractor that's assisting us with the rates and the waivers. If you want to share that information, you can send it to me and just put, future dreams for waivers. That would be fine, and I'll share it.
Bucket list for
Yes,
waivers.
we all have our bucket list. I still have a bucket list from being a case manager. We all have a bucket list.
Got it. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I have one question before Leslie gets off the line.
Yes.
Leslie, is there, now that the rate study is complete, is there still an ongoing overall effort at waiver redesign? I know we did some
Yes.
things like,
Yeah.
aligning service definitions and names of services and now rates and things like that. But is there still, and can you give us an update on the status of that? Like what's
Yeah, of
being
course,
looked at
our
or-
priorities right now have been to address those things immediately. We've got to get to CMS and there's quality assurance that CMS constantly asks us for on a 5-year waiver. We have to submit those every 3 years and things like that. And I guess, Johnny, that you're probably aware too, there's about 9 federal final rules that are coming out. Some of them will impact HCB. Some of them are going to impact our behavioral health programs. So we're trying to get prepared for that because CMS is going to expect us to be in compliance. So we're trying to hit everything in priority. The redesign is still on the table.
Leslie?
Yes.
Do you also want to mention about and I'm going to get these acronyms wrong, but the money that was used so in the ARPA plan, it was the money to give providers an increased rate or whatever. So because that's all tied and you can't do anything that would affect the MOE or MOA, I can't think.
Maintenance of effort. It's an E.
There we go. The maintenance of effort, because CMS looks at as if you are taking something away. And so they have been very, a very strong point there that we can't make big changes like that, even if it's never been in the waiver before. Like maybe it was in the application, but it's never been in reg, it's never been available. They're like, you cannot do anything to that service until all that ARPA money has been used. So until that ARPA money is, and this is where it's over my head, the financial part pulled down and all of that, we cannot do anything to any of the services that looks like we made a big change.
That's correct. Thank you, Alicia, for bringing that up. Yeah, so until that maintenance of effort has been achieved during that time period and all funds have been exhausted, we're not allowed to make any major changes. We expect the funds to be exhausted the end of the year, but I'm not going to quote that because I actually just last week asked finance to relook at that. They're thinking that it might even go into the beginning of the new year. So we were thinking the end of December, and now we're thinking some of it might fall over into the beginning of the following year. So I just asked last week. I don't have an answer on that.
And I believe CMS updated the MOE extension that you all have until, I think, through the end of 2025 to expend all the money.
I'll take a
Two.
look. I have March.
I think it's through twenty
I had
25.
March of 2025 written down prior to that, so we can take a look.
Oh, you could be right.
That's what I had as well as March.
Okay. It's March 2025.
Yeah,
That's what I
have written
had,
down.
unless something's changed recently that I'm not aware of.
Lots of things have changed
Yeah,
recently.
I do, and again, because that's how that conversation came up, that we knew that it had to be exhausted by March. And when they, our folks at, in finance were thinking that it might, actually go past December, but it should be that first quarter, so we're probably okay.
So once those funds are expended, then we could see maybe more activity and just overall waiver redesign efforts.
Yes, and we could even give you an update on that later. It continues on our work list. Of course, Guidehouse is assisting with that.
Sure. Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Oh,
And the expenditure, the expiration of that MOE effort aligns very perfectly with
yeah,
the timing of new regs.
that's what I was thinking. Jonathan Scott, he is on if we've got any questions, but I think I answered your questions. We do public comment in winter of 25 for the regulations, and maybe an effective date around spring of the fall. Jonathan, does that sound right to you if you're on?
Good morning, everyone. Jonathan Scott, DMS Legislative Liaison, Reg Coordinator. Yes, you know, it takes quite a while to get regs through. As you all know, it's a 9 to 12 month process anymore. We anticipate there would be lots of comments on the regs that would be made. So just want to keep that in mind. There's probably going to be a longer process. So if we file in winter 2002, we would be lucky to get them through, or 2025, we'd be lucky to get them through in by summer 2026, 2025. You know, that would be fast. We'd probably be looking at fall 2026. I don't imagine that these would be emergency regulations because we want to make sure that you all would have some runway to assess everything as it went forward. So just that's you know, it's a slower process with that right now.
And Jonathan, can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
About the dates that you just said. Just to be clear, we're anticipating filing in the spring potentially.
No, I believe that we would anticipate a file date somewhere in winter. So winter 2025. So that's probably anywhere
a year
from
now.
Yeah. No.
Got it.
No, yeah, just maybe 6 months from now, something like that.
Okay.
Not to put a number on it. I wouldn't hold us to that, but you know, that's kind of the start of when winter 2025. So you know, you're looking at that kind of
okay. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
And Jonathan, they had one more question earlier about, and maybe you just said this, I was reading. No, we're probably not going to get these through an E-reg, especially if it's spring or possible session, right?
Yes. It's going to be difficult, you know, because we split our efforts between regs and legislation, making sure that we're prepared for upcoming legislation. You know, we'll see probably 100 bill drafts that we have to review. We will be tracking anywhere from you know, 30 bills or more that will be moving through the process. So it's, you know, it's simply you know, the reg bandwidth and the legislative bandwidth are very difficult to be doing at the same time. It's just the nature of the beast.
Thank you.
Any other questions for that particular agenda item before we adjourn the meeting? No other questions? I'd like to thank the cabinet personnel that attended the call. That very helpful information today.
Oh, good.
We'll go ahead and adjourn the call.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.